There you are. What's up, buddy?
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Very good.
Sounds like you're holding that the device that got you the nice house.
That's right.
Sitting in the little the studio. First and foremost, a gigantic aloha and welcome back, my brother Al, coming ahead of the big shows, and we're appreciative of this so much.
Good to be back. Love playing there. Oh my God.
What a fun time, huh? You have good memories of your time here?
And I have fond memories of other islands as well, but playing at the Blue Note last time was a blast, I have to say. So we're looking forward to it.
And when we left off with you, pandemic had just, let me set the stage so you can kind of remember, the pandemic had kind of leveled touring. You told some incredible stories. You were tucked in at your house, and then a few months after we talked to you, you started this wild bit. And I was actually telling John McLaughlin about it. I saw you were with him just the other day, but he got a kick out of it. So I told him how I was watching online. You were doing these private home experiences, such an innovative thing considering the circumstances. So explain how the idea first came and then what exactly it was, how it happened.
Well, what it was that period, especially the first year, 2020, we all got the sense that we're in the middle of something pretty serious starting in March. We had gone through just a long period of being home. So it was a long time for me to be sequestered down in my studio, and I made use of the time with writing and everything. And then towards the middle to end of the summer, I had a couple of high school friends over. They're sitting out on the deck, and I said, why don't I do some cooking today? My wife said, you want to do it? I said, yeah, I'm going to make them something that's going to blow them away in the Italian side of things. I had a couple of glasses of wine. I was feeling real good. And I said to my wife, I said, why don't you go live stream right now? And she goes, you sure? I said, yeah, go live stream. Let them watch me cook. So, a lot of comments coming in from all over the world. An offhand, just kind of very spontaneous. I said a comment like, and if you want, you can come here and I'll cook for you in person. And I wasn't serious at all about it. But then later that night, we read all the comments. So a lot of people were asking, what's it going to take? And so, we just started thinking about it. And we both looked at one another and said, wow, not only present, the appetizers and then sit down dinner for 2 hours, but then after that, go down in the studio and play like a private show and offer a lesson at the end of that or a jam session at the end of the show. I wonder if that could go over. So we thought it was a great idea. And then, I started getting a little scared about it because, what if it didn't go over and the whole COVID thing? But right away, we got one guy that came in from Detroit. I remember the day, it was like almost 100-degree day. He comes in, he was sweating beyond belief. I said, well, go up to the guest room, take a shower, get yourself ready, come on down for dinner. And he comes down and we had a great time. And after my show, I said, well, you want to jam or something? He goes, oh, yeah, definitely. That's what I really came for. I said, okay, well, pick out a guitar because I have all my guitars laid out all over the place. He goes, oh, no. I brought my own instrument. I said, well, what did you bring? And he takes out a cowbell. You got to be kidding me. He goes, yeah, I just want to play some. I just want to be able to say I played with Al Meola. So he takes out the cowbell. We gave him a stick. And then I just started playing something. He starts hitting the cowbell. Completely out of time, by the way. But I kept looking back at my wife going, well, we came up with an original idea. And then we just got to go with the flow. And we were just smiling our whole way through. So one home event led to a lot of others, I got to say. People came in that first year from places like Japan, California, Florida, West Virginia, Arizona. We kept it no more than 2 people. And half the time was only one person that showed up. But it was really successful, and now we've done a total of about 20 of them.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. In all, total of 20 from the beginning?
About 20 of them, and I think there's some more lined up. We just had one the other night. 2 guys, 2 friends, one from Minneapolis, one from Wisconsin. And what was cool about it was original, where everyone else was out there offering lessons or some kind of, which really did not knock me out. I like doing that kind of thing, or some kind of clinic in person. And so when we came up with this idea, it was like, oh man, this was great. Don't have to pack a bag, don't have to go to the airport, don't have to split a commission with a manager or an agent.
Right.
And it was an amazing discovery. And my wife and I, it's like a little business we created because she really sets everything up where the house is immaculate. And my place is really like a museum. It's got everything that you can imagine that I've acquired over the 40 some odd years from Return to Forever on. So much to see and talk about in this place.
Strumming away, kind of serenading them with stuff too.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Well, after dinner, we come down. We got the house set up with,
Oh, wow.
all my guitars.
He's showing us the room that they do it in. Lots of guitars. Wow, they got their choice of like 20, 30.
Yeah, and hardly anyone picks one up. It's just they just enjoy the performance.
That's something else. Something else. And did you tell John McLaughlin about these at all when you saw him? Did he have any reaction?
I don't remember if I told him. Whenever I did talk to him, the brief times I did talk to him, we were talking about Saturday night in San Francisco.
Right.
Did you talk to John about Saturday night in San Francisco?
He's going to be on soon with that. We had him on twice so far during the pandemic, and it was the second time was the Montreux record. First time was like Lockdown Blues and the stuff he was doing to benefit nonprofits. But actually, that was my next thing here to talk to you about, because it's a really, as I was going to kind of set it up a little bit for folks. So there's this very classic part of Al's life in the late 70s, early 80s, and they did it a few different times after that. But it was this guitar trio that came together, and they did the Friday night in San Francisco and the Passion, Grace, and Fire. But it was Al, it was John McLaughlin, Paco de Lucia, and they have just recently put out a Saturday night in San Francisco. But now that I've given a little bit of introduction, explain the fascinating story. How did this thing come to be with John and Paco to begin with?
Well, first it started with my discovery of Paco, really, in 1974 or 5. It was definitely the first time I had toured Europe as a member of Return to Forever. And so I think I was still 19 at the time.
Wow.
And when we hit Spain, there was a lot of talk about this new flamenco sensation, Paco de Lucia. Everybody seemed to be talking about this guy. So I went to a record store, picked up some of his work, and then I went back and after the tour, and I listened to what I thought was just some amazing guitar playing. He was definitely someone that caught my attention because of his amazing technique and feel, and the fact that he was playing with a lot of percussion. And so I knew that he was really looking to expand the idiom. So I had it in the back of my mind to do something with him. And it wasn't until about 3 years later, actually forming my second record, putting together pieces, picking out who's going to play on what. And so I had this piece that I wrote called Mediterranean Sundance, definitely Paco in mind. So I had my record company contact his record company in Spain. They thought it was a great idea because at the time they thought it would be good for Paco to get the exposure. Wasn't really known in North America. So he flew over, didn't know a word of English. And he had a friend with him who was like a translator. You could see he felt kind of outside of his comfort zone. He wasn't relaxed. And we tried about 3 or 4 takes, and it wasn't going as well as I had hoped. So his friend came over to me. He goes, Paco needs, in order for him to play, he really needs to have some reefer. That, oh, okay. I said, well, let me see what I can do. So a friend of mine, this guy was like my big brother, Michael, and he was in the next room. And, if you picture this guy, he's like, right out of Woodstock. And I said, Michael, you think you can get Paco some weed? And Michael goes, oh, absolutely. So, he comes back with a bag of weed, and the next take was the one that's on the album. Everybody in the control room was high-fiving and shouting. And so that was that moment that enabled that record to go gold and platinum. And we had hit singles on that piece in many countries, Germany, Spain, all over the world.
Can you play a little chunk of that for folks?
Oh, yeah. So it's like... So as soon as you play that, people just know it. You know, 3 years later, we were approached by an impresario from London, Barry Marshall, who was just starting in the business. It was his idea to put the trio together. He asked me if I would like to do it. I said, oh, absolutely. It would be great. His first idea was me and Paco and Leo Kottke. And I love Leo Kottke, but I thought it was a little strange. But then he comes back maybe a week later and said, instead of Leo, what do you think of John McLaughlin? I said, oh my God, well, if you get John, the trio is going to be a smash. And then that led on to a huge tour, a 2-month tour where we played nearly, I don't know, at least 6 shows a week. Our chops were crazy good because we didn't have any things like cell phones, computers to take our time away. So all we did was practice. We wanted to be top notch next to one another. And then we finished in San Francisco. And even though we recorded most of the shows, it was the last 2 shows that were really the most incredible. When we listened to God, even when John, when I sent him some of the Saturday night, first of all, he was surprised there was a Saturday. I had to remind him we played 2 nights. And so I sent him a couple of tracks and he was knocked out. So that led to me kind of producing the whole thing because, he couldn't travel at the time.
There are 2 questions come to mind because of that. I guess we'll start with where you ended it, which is these 2 shows. Bill Graham was the promoter of these. Explain your first encounters ever. Tell any stories you've got of first meeting Bill and any stories about these shows in particular that have any cool Bill Graham stories that make you feel good, smile, laugh, or just are incredible to remember about a guy who I'm sure you have enormous respect for.
Oh, Bill Graham, my God. I have a tremendous amount of respect. I was a teenager going to school in New Jersey, and me and my buddies would go in virtually almost every week to see shows at the legendary theater, Fillmore East in the Greenwich Village. It was actually in the East Village. And I saw everybody that he presented there, just about every show. I remember him coming out front of the theater and being screamed at by a lot of the kids that were online who called him like, a kind of, they were screaming about the price of the tickets, capitalist pig, and, things that were really kind of rude at the time. Everybody was kind of in a hippie mode. Everything should be cheap and blah, blah, blah. And I remember distinctly him kind of yelling back, which he didn't even have to come out front. But he felt like he needed to kind of get his point across, and it was kind of loud. But he would shout back. He said, hey, listen, I got artists like Elton John coming over here charging me $5,000 a night. I have to charge $350, $450, and $550 for tickets. Like $3.50, $4.50, $5.50. That's incredible. He had to fight to prove his point. Tickets were so cheap, but it was too much for the hippies at the time,
What a great story.
Well, he also had the Hells Angels headquarters a block away. So they were always kind of, I guess they were hired to keep people in line if they were trying to cut in line. So there was always like pretty interesting out front when you were trying to get into a show.
I bet. What was your first personal, like when you finally become, because so many people have stories just like you, Satriani, everybody, of being a fan, going to those venues, but then they become artists and they're either managed by him, working for him, running into him. Is there a famous incident when you first got around him or when you think back to those shows, something that comes to mind made you feel good?
Pretty damn good, I think, respect and love of the music too. He wasn't just a business guy. He had to be a business guy, but he also really loved the music he was promoting. So before I knew him, he was flying back and forth between Fillmore East and Fillmore West. And luckily, when I was 15, I got to go to Fillmore West as well. But then when I hit 19, he booked Return to Forever, and then I met him. And as soon as I met him, I told him the stories about how he would take the time to explain his point of why he needed to charge $350, $450, and $550. People are coming over from England. They charge me $5,000 a night. It's a fortune.
Did he get a kick out of that?
He got a kick out of it. He was great. I mean, if he liked you and you were cool, it was fine. And man, if you weren't,
forget it.
But you have it. He was a tough guy. We took no and he was just amazing, you know.
Similar question before we let you go, that because we got a great one about the Paco, and it's a hilarious one about just getting to know him and how it led to this new record for sure. But thinking about John McLaughlin and take yourself all the way back to when his name first came into your life, how it did, what you thought of him, and then when you first got to meet him, and then perhaps, because I just was looking at the pictures, if you go on Al's Facebook, you can see these great photos of Al and John. It's a very warm and fuzzy thing to see them sitting there with Paco's widow and stuff in one. But when you think of all your great times, there's got to be a wild story or two, not just like scandalous, but intense and cool. Maybe a great guest came to watch or sit in. What comes to mind? But first, take us back to first meeting John and getting to know him.
Well, first meeting John was enamored with the flamenco kind of thing. He said he always wanted to be a flamenco player.
Okay.
So I met John, and I was kind of the kid, 12 years younger than John. John and I were both on Columbia Records at the time before it became Sony. And it was a little strange in a sense because I kind of had to like fight to earn my position. It felt like it was a little bit like that. But what I remember, we weren't close as friends, although the first tour was definitely lighthearted, and then it became a little bit more strained as tours went on. But there was something that happened during the first tour that I keep remembering now. It's we played cards a lot for a lot of money. we played a game called Casino. Paco, John, and myself quite often, you know, whether we were on trains or going to the next gig or in cars or the hotel. And the stakes were pretty high. I mean, I'm talking about, you know, sometimes we're going into the thousands. And I swear to God, Paco would win almost every time. And whenever John lost, he would throw a fit, just completely go berserk, throwing things. And I was like, you know what? I'm losing, but I'm enjoying myself watching this so much. So I told John's wife, when we were in Madrid for the Paco tribute, and she was, "Oh yes, he's got a temper. Oh my God. Oh yes. I could see John doing that." I said, "You know what? I didn't mind losing just to see him flip out." One of the many stories, let's put it that way.
Oh, it's a great one, and it really says a lot. And it's wonderful folks can hear the record. You've heard about these characters, who all of them really, who are involved in it, and John McLaughlin, Paco de Lucia, and of course Al Di Meola, who we've been talking with, and the promoter, Bill Graham, who put the thing together. It was a very comprehensive little bit we just did, and of course he's back Thursday and Friday, October 6th and 7th. Blue Note Hawaii. We'll hopefully get together with you when you're in town, and I hope that you had fun. Did you have fun going over this stuff with me today?
Oh, absolutely. I love going over these stories, and there's so many stories that, you know, a lot of them are winding up in a book that I've been doing. I've been putting together for the last couple of years, so there's tons of stories.
Well, if you feel like talking more when you're in town, let me know. I'll do a thing with you there, and you can tell more of them. But either way, we're so grateful, Al. I hope you can feel the gratitude, my brother.
I do. And I look forward to seeing everybody out there.
We appreciate it, Al. Thanks for joining us today, brother.
All right. Take care, bud.
See you, man.
All the best.
You too. Aloha.
Aloha.